This is Lily,
Gabriella,
and Rachel.
In The Lord of the Flies, the two main themes that stood out to us were the need for power and the underlying evil in humanity.
These concepts still show up in people's everyday lives, and that is why people are still reading this book today.
People as individuals want power so they can be acknowledged. This need for power that people has creates an underlying evil in them.
There are leaders in every family, but if a family has one person with too much power, it can turn into chaos or even an abusive relationship.
As people, we subconsciously judge people and in our head think if we are superior or inferior to them. Some people bully others and spread rumors to make themselves feel superior.
People also group themselves in certain friend groups, and everyone wants to be in the most popular or superior group.
Politics are a perfect example of this fight for power. Politicians argue and stab each other in the back daily. It is all to gain power. Power turns people evil.
We have police for a reason. People can be evil. People commit crimes for their own good instead of for the good of the society.
So on page 115, it stated that Ralph too was fighting to get near, to get a handful of that brown, vulnerable flesh. The desire to squeeze and hurt was overmastering. So this was during the feast that Jack and his tribe had to try and get more people to join them. And it was kind of just showing that they found this good thing that they haven't had in a while, and they've realized like their control and that they want more of it. And they'll fight to get to it.
This also kind of leads to that endless pit that is power. So let's say you have a goal to gain this status or get this amount of power. Once you get there, you're eventually not going to be satisfied. You're just going to want more and more power.
Ralph had a lot to do with this power. Like, he was given it at first, and he didn't realize that how much he liked it until it was gone, and he started doubting his power, though, because he knew that he shouldn't be using it to influence people in a bad way. But at the same time, he knew that's kind of what he needed to do to keep people with him. And I just feel like up to the end of the book, he still didn't want to do that.
Once you get into the right circumstances, you will do anything to stay alive, even if it is an act of evil.
In our country and in other countries around the world, people are committing terrorist acts and hate crimes.
Many countries fight to achieve things first, to feel superior, such as being the first to land on the moon. On page 29, they say, eyes shining, mouths open, triumphant, they savor the right of domination. This shows that the boys, right when they got to the island, they already had a desire for power.
This was when they were first exploring the island, and just the fact that they were able to explore and just kind of figure out where they were.
I feel like it was the first initial burst of freedom, like they finally realized,
Yeah.
oh, there's nobody here, we can have as much fun as we want, and they didn't quite get how serious their situation was yet.
Some countries have dictators, and in most cases it does not work out. Our country doesn't just have one leader, because it would create chaos if a single person had too much power, like in The Lord of the Flies, how Jack had too much power.
Humanity instinctively desires power to survive. People are never satisfied with how much power they have. This creates the underlying evil inside of us. So, on page 89 it said, what I mean is, maybe it's only us. When Simon said this, it was during the meeting when they're talking about whether or not the beast was a real thing. And it heavily implies like what Simon's character is like, but also that the people themselves are the main problem on the island, like they're causing it.
It kind of shows that the beast is not really like a creature, but more like
It's a subconscious.
a subconscious like part of all of them that is like the evil that causes them to do those terrible things that happen later in the book.
They believe there's a beast, so therefore they've created this fear that they need to do something to stop it, which can lead to fear causing them to become like out of control.
On page 143, the Lord of the Flies says to Simon, fancy thinking the beast was something you could hunt and kill. You knew, didn't you? I'm part of you. This was Simon's subconscious telling him that the beast wasn't real and it was just the evil inside of them.
On page 202, this is describing around when Piggy died and Ralph's thought process. Ralph wept for the end of innocence, the darkness of man's heart, and the fall through the air of a true, wise friend called Piggy. This is really a very melancholy quote, and it's just kind of showing that Ralph is finally realizing how evil they are all really being, because they actually killed Piggy. He didn't just die. They purposefully killed him.
And he didn't have the excuse of being on the side like he did with Simon. He was truly at fault for what happened, even though he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, per se. He did play a part in what happened. And I think Simon and Piggy were like Ralph's closest friends as well.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't remember which page it was, but I know Ralph mentioned we killed him. I feel like just saying that and Jack's denial of the fact that they had in fact killed somebody, they just didn't acknowledge that Simon never showed up again. Like Jack stating it was the Beast and Ralph saying we killed him, we were at fault for this. It's kind of that dividing line between people who are still sane and people who are just denying the fact that they've lost all of their morals.
Do you want to discuss at all how it talks about the kid with the mulberry birthmark? I feel like he's kind of like slightly important, but
I feel like he was like that shadow in the back of their mind that they didn't have everything under control and it wasn't perfect.
And it was more like that was really the beginning of where things started to go wrong.
And they tried to like ignore it. Like they didn't want to accept the fact that they're like, oh, he's probably just missing. He just hasn't turned up yet, even though we only know that there were 3 people who died. But you get the feeling that there were a lot more, and the kid with the mulberry birthmark was the main person that was pointed out for that.
The main goal of the project is why are we reading it?
I feel like it happened during World War II. Because it would make sense, like, the people would have to be evacuated from London, and it'd make sense for them to go to some school somewhere else. And they were definitely British. They even mentioned that they're English, but as soon as they mention tea time, it's like, yep, you're British. That's the difference between American and British books. American mentions some type of soda, and British mentions tea. I feel like it was World War II, so Hitler's conquest for power and the power to take over the island, it was very similar.
So I'm pretty sure that it was meant to be that time, but I don't think he meant it to be in the future.
I feel like the main difference, though, was Hitler was trying to create a pure race of people, and they were just trying to get the most power and control what was the #1 priority on the island. They weren't really excluding anybody except Piggy.
Yeah, and they all just wanted power because the person with the most power got the most food, got the most everything. And got to say what they did and what to do for them.
I feel like it's even easier to connect it with the 2-party system. Whoever has the most votes has the most power. And the votes, instead of being in like ballots, were actually the number of people who joined you.
Actually, true. Because going back to the election. I know Hillary Clinton got the most votes, but she doesn't have the most power, unfortunately. So,
No, we haven't divided America in half into like, okay, we're gonna have both of them be president. Go to that side if you want one of them, and go to the other side if you want the other. I think that was the Civil War.
It's like those bad choices.
I was saying that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
He still doesn't answer countries. Be fine.
No, because that went so well last time, but fine. Although the Czech Republic and Slovakia had like the most peaceful split ever. They're like, okay, you get half of the tanks, we get half of the tanks. Oh, there's one less than you need, we'll build you another one.
Simon's death still, because we didn't talk a lot about
we didn't talk too much about it other than like the main betrayal of it and how it was sadder than everything else in the entire book. So I can forget about the island. Simon, however,
so he
was brutally murdered by everybody, and half of the people just ignored it.
I almost think they might have been like so far gone at that point that they didn't even like realize what they were doing.
There were certain people who had like realized that it had happened, but they hadn't quite realized it to the point where they recognized that it had.
I think
they
Jack,
knew something had gone wrong.
Had subconsciously, like, he knows deep down that he killed Simon, but he doesn't want to accept it, and then, like, the little ones, they just believe Jack, so they really don't know. But then there's people like Ralph, who he accepts it, and he's like, yes, we killed Simon.
Him and Piggy were trying to justify the fact that they didn't stop it. They're like, we were on the side, we weren't actually in it. And it sounds like they might have at least a little bit been part of it, but it doesn't seem like they were the ones who actually killed him. it's just like the whole bystander thing. It's like, this person died and there's a ton of people around who could have stopped it or called like an ambulance. And
they just
there's like
stood
500
by.
people who thought somebody else was going to do it, so nobody did it.
Yeah, exactly.
This book teaches us that if one person has too much power, or when people crave power without having any laws to keep them in their place, society will turn to chaos.
On page 70, Jack is thinking of his first kill, and it describes this as, his mind was crowded with memories of the knowledge that had come to them when they closed in on the struggling pig, knowledge that they had outwitted a living thing, imposed their will upon it, taken away its life like a long, satisfying drink. This really shows how that sense of power causes the evil, and that some things you're not meant to have control over, because even at first they just kind of need the pigs to have food. It really just becomes like a ritual, and like they worship the kill, and it's really actually pretty scary.
I feel like this is like the first initial glance of that freedom being put in like a bad light. Like they realize that they have so much control over everything there. There's nobody to tell them they can't do that. Not even the other wildlife on the island can stop them from it. I feel like we see that a lot in today. We have so much control over everything that happens in the world. We can control which species die, which species live, which habitats survive.
Piggy.
Yeah.
His death was so sad.
I feel like that was the saddest point in the entire book. Like, I didn't care about anybody else. Simon's
I feel like
death.
Simon's death was the saddest.
Yeah.
Piggy's was just really sudden, but Simon's was like really sad.
Yeah. And you could kind of see Piggy's death coming.
Yeah.
Like, that was just complete chaos.
I did not see that coming. I cried. I was so sad. I love Piggy.
Yeah.
I just feel like it was much worse considering Piggy knew there was a chance of being betrayed by everybody.
Yeah.
And Simon was just trying to be helpful.
Yes.
And he's like, we were all invited, and then they just start stabbing him.
Yes, he comes out and that was just like creepy.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, I was just shook. Come out of nowhere.